Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 14th, 2024 Planning Board meeting. I'd like to start with the pledge, please. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice I'd like to make my usual announcements. The emergency exits are to your left and right on the sides of the room. The restrooms are out the door and to the left. Please be sure to sign the attendance sheet if you have not yet done that. It's on the back table. And there's also business cards back there with contact information for the planning department. Also on the back table is a copy of any resolutions that will be read tonight along with the agenda. Please silence your cell phones or turn them off so it doesn't disrupt those who are presenting to the board. And please, if you have conversations that you need to have amongst yourselves, please take them out of the room and close the door so it does not disrupt the meeting. Thank you. Meeting minutes. Lisa, we have one for approval, the 12th of March, 2024. Everybody here for that one? Okay, so do I hear any questions or comments for Lisa? Joe, you all set? Ernie?
Nope.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from 3:12.
I'll move.
Ernie moves.
Second.
And Al seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried 4-0. Scott is absent this evening. We received a couple of correspondence since the last meeting for 92 Fishers Road from Lori Allen and regarding Howland Hills subdivision from Allison Owens. Board updates. Is Alexis here? Yep. Oh, right in front. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. As you all know, my name is Alexis Okra. I'm on the Victortown board. As of the last meeting was Deputy Supervisor Condon's last time as a liaison for the planning board for the year, so I'll be taking over for the next 4 months. Really looking forward to it. Prior to being on the town board, I was on the zoning board of appeals, so every once in a while there'd be some projects that would come across both of our boards, so I'm somewhat familiar, and I do try and watch all of the meetings that you guys have had, so pretty much up to date-ish on everything you've been doing over the past year here. Just to give a little bit of, I guess, background on myself, got elected last year in November, took office in January. I live in the village over in Jacob's Landing with my husband and my 1-year-old daughter. In my day job, I work for the state assembly, and I've kind of worked in all different fields of government. And let's see, what else? One of the things, the other places I'm liaison to is the village. Out of our town board, myself and Supervisor Marin are the only ones that live in the village, so I regularly attend their meetings as well. So if you have any questions, those are probably best directed to the village, but happy to try and answer anything from one of their meetings as well. One of the things we've been working on the town is the solar moratorium. As you may or may not know, we implemented a 6-month solar moratorium, not at our last meeting yesterday, but at the one 3 weeks ago. And we have been doing a task force approach to looking at the town solar code, making a recommendation to the town board in regards to zoning, as well as some other different areas, whether it be taxing, who ends up having final approval, different sorts of things regarding the solar code. So that group is myself, Mike Guinan, who's also on the town board, our town engineer, Wes, our code enforcement officer, Adam, Keith, and our planning department, our town attorney, Frank, as well as Mike Reinhardt, who is chair of the zoning board of appeals, and Rob Brenner, who is a resident in our town and attorney is his day job. Last night at our town board meeting, we had Mengel, Metzger, and Barr review our town audit. If you have any questions about that, happy to try and answer them. best place to probably go might be up to Rich in our finance department. And then one of the other things that I've been working on is working with our town park staff regarding changing tables for both babies at our town parks and town facilities, as well as adult changing stations. So that's something that I've been very passionate about, but as well I've heard from many people in the community about trying to get one for just our families to have at town parks, but also for those who are who have adult or older children with developmental disabilities who might need that service. So that's something that hopefully we're trying to get going for sometime in the fall. But if you have any questions, happy to answer them. And sorry to keep it so long because I know you guys have a long agenda tonight, but I'll try to keep it more brief at the next meeting.
On the plus side, a couple of them left the meeting agenda, so it's a little bit shorter, but thank you. I appreciate the backup and the background. So any questions for Alexis?
Oh, nice to have you.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Thank you. Take
Great,
care.
thanks. Jack Maron's here. Anything you'd like to say, Jack?
If I could, my apologies.
Not a problem.
Alexis, she may not be wearing sneakers, but she's off and running here on the first floor. I just real quick, the sewer agreement with the village has expired, so we are working on that. We have sent them some talking points, some changes we are looking for, and certainly we look forward to those responses from our village government so we can get that solidified here in the very near future. And just the only other thing I wanted to mention, I know certainly it was about a year and a half ago that we heard the announcement that Constellation was leaving the town of Victor, heading to downtown Rochester. And certainly I have to applaud the Rinaldi Group for their efforts in backfilling that space now. And certainly here tonight on your agenda is a consideration for an addition in Building 300. So certainly what was a bit of a down day for us, and certainly Ontario County is certainly looking much brighter as we stand here. So again, thank you. Appreciate your service to our community and to the residents and vendors here this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Keith Mader is not here this evening. Lisa, do you want to
Sure.
update us for the next?
So your next meeting is May 29th. It is Wednesday due to the holiday. It is a little bit later, so you do have TNT fireworks tent at 2-20 Commerce Drive. Applicant is requesting approval for temporary tent for sale of New York sparkling devices from June 20th to July 5th. You did see them last year also.
Same location?
Same location. A new one is Barely Legal Fireworks Tent. They are going to be located at Eastview Mall, and they're requesting approval for a 30 by 45 temporary tent for sale of New York sparkling devices also from June 16th to July 5th. That is something new you have not seen. And then Victor Community Church at 7500 State Route 251. They are requesting approval for construction of a grass soccer field on the western portion of the parcel. It does include clearing of vegetation, regrading, and seeding, and some drainage. So that's why it's coming to you guys. And any carryovers.
Great, thanks, Lisa. Any questions for Lisa on the agenda? Nope, okay. As I alluded, there's a couple of items on the agenda that have been removed by request of the applicants. The Rivian charging station is not going to be considered this evening, as is Bluestone Trail. It's been tabled both, I think, to the 29th, or actually Rivian's until further notice.
So further notice, yep.
So Bluestone Trail is 7200 Rawson Road. That's been tabled until the May 29th meeting. And I believe that's all the updates. Well, let's get into it. First item on the agenda is a public hearing. It's still open, 92 Fishers Road site plan. The applicant is requesting approval for land clearing and grading that has already been performed on the existing residential property. Good evening, Glenn.
Good evening. Yes, at the last meeting, we were charged with meeting with the neighbors on the site to resolve some encroachment issues, some tree clearing issues, some grading issues on the adjacent property. I think the site plan was ready for approval once these neighborhood issues were resolved. We did have a meeting with the neighbors, with Elijah, his right-hand man. Adam was there. Keith's right-hand man, who I can't remember his name, but we had a meeting. We thought we had come to resolution. The meeting was May 9th. I sent revised plans in on May 10th. And subsequent to me sending the plans in, I think the neighbors had second thoughts about what was discussed at the meeting. So at this point in time, we thought the best thing to do would be to pull all the neighbor concerns off the site plans and just present clean site plans for the work on 92 Fisher Road. We have not yet done that. I wanted to get input from the board to see how we should present it, if the project can move forward without the neighbors' concerns being addressed at this time, because we really would like to stabilize the site. Since the last meeting, the owner, the applicant, has done quite a bit of work within the stream with the town's approval to get that cleaned out, to reduce the amount of sediment that might get in the stream. I think he's done a pretty good job with it, removing a lot of the fill that was placed within the stream banks, and it looks like he removed all of the fallen trees that had been pushed down there, even the ones that fell naturally within the stream bank area. So he's at a point where he may have stabilized that with hydro seeding since the meeting, I'm not sure. But we would like to wrap up the rest of the job. So hopefully we can get approval. You tell me how you would like the site plans revised, we would do that, and hopefully we can get approval so we can get it stabilized.
Thanks, Glenn. I guess I'll introduce this, and then I'll have maybe our town engineer fill in some blanks, and if Adam's needed, then he might have some comments. But as I understand it, the dispute between the applicant and the next door neighbors is really a matter between them. It's not it's not something the town has to be involved in. So by doing what you're suggesting, it allows us to focus on the work on the property. So with that, having said that, I guess I'll let Wes expand.
Sure, yeah, thanks, Joe. We've been advised, we did have a conversation, town staff and Labella Associates, we had a conversation this morning with the town attorney, and we've been advised that the dispute about the grading that's happened or removal of trees and landscaping that's occurred on a neighboring property is simply a private party dispute, and the town would not be involved with reviewing that as part of the site plan application for 92 Fisher Road. So what the town attorney has advised is that an updated site plan be provided that shows just the improvements that are proposed on 92 Fisher Road alone, and that the town is not to be involved in the private party dispute between the two property owners. So those are kind of the marching orders that we were given by the attorney. And Adam, if there's anything that you want to add to that.
I think we covered it.
Yep.
So Glenn, I mean, those are the basic marching orders, is what you reflected on, is what we'd like you to present. Now, if there's details that we need to add or have reviewed by code enforcement or the town's stormwater
Stormwater program manager.
program manager, thank
Yep.
you. I'm still fishing for the name. Then that would certainly be something that we can review once you've submitted that, or if you have questions while you're developing that plan, certainly reach out to the town or to Wes. That's about it. I mean, it's basically.
We can have those in tomorrow. We
Okay.
can get the revised plans submitted without the neighbors' concerns on them and get them submitted tomorrow. And then what happens? Are we going to get some sort of a conditional approval where we could stabilize the site, or will it not happen until we come back again?
I would presume that we would want to see the updated site plan and then take action on that at the next meeting.
Hearing also that the work that's being done to keep it stable on site is I don't want to use the word blessing, but the town's been agreeable to allowing him to maintain the property.
Yeah, I think it might be helpful, Adam, would you be able to characterize for the planning board how the site is being handled on a day-to-day basis, or what the applicant has done to, remedy some of the unstabilized soil to this point?
Adam Razak, Code Enforcement. Yeah, so the applicant, had a directive to put soil erosion control measures in place. And the issue was that the steep slopes that were created almost made it impossible to install measures such as silt fence correctly. So we had authorized him to pull back the banks, which is a little more extensive than your basic soil and erosion control measures, but it was the only effective solution to prevent any further siltation of the stream at the north end of the property. So the property owner has been very diligent about trying to prevent all of that. The lot was stabilized with straw. It's since been, because of the rework, had to be re-stabilized. And I believe that's what Glenn was mentioning with the application of some hydroseed. Our understanding is that there's still some grading work that needs to be done to match the site plan as proposed. But beyond that, the site should be ready to receive seed and stabilization measures. And those soil and erosion control measures will be required to stay in place until the lot is stabilized. Is that
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
good?
Thanks, Adam. Any questions for Wes from the board? We're trying to navigate this issue when things get done before they have a chance to, before they've been brought to the board for approval. It's a little out of sequence, so it's
Well,
a challenge to make it
What I
all
can
fit.
add is the plans that we submitted on the 10th actually depict all the work within the site that we are proposing be done. It just has some additions to it, such as planting trees on the neighboring property. That's about it, really.
Yeah, and I think the point is, we should only be showing features on the parcel on 92 Fishers Road for your next plan that you're going to be doing on 92 Fishers, not off the property.
Correct. I'm trying to steer you, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm trying to steer you in the decision that we're looking for. We were hoping to receive a conditional approval, conditional upon us removing the information about the neighboring parcel from the site plan. Just to kind of wrap it up so we can finish this project
Yeah.
before we're into the summer where nothing's going to grow.
So I hear that you're going to do that. I mean, I don't know if I can give you conditional approval upon, based on what you're telling us. Normally we have a plan we need to have in front of us with all those features, on and off. So we're talking 2 weeks down the road, I believe. So if he's continuing to stabilize the property for the next 2 weeks, I think that's the best we can do without having a plan that we can approve.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I was going to. So, yeah, the public hearing is still open. Wes is chiming in as well. So if there's anyone that has a comment or, please limit your comments to 3 minutes if you can, and from there.
It will be less than 3 minutes, I promise you.
Thank you.
We are in the process of determining,
Sorry, name and address, just for the
sorry,
record.
Lori Allen, 118 Fishers Road. We have
Thank you.
determined that Elijah has taken an eighth of an acre of our land. We are in the process of having it appraised. That's not anything to do with this planning board. But what we would like to say to the planning board is another 2 weeks, given the temperatures that have been occurring in June, we need to keep stabilizing this soil. I mean, our property is at risk here as well, because we're the top of this hill. It's a very small piece. Adam has assured us that because it's so small, we are not going to be charged with not being in town code compliance. And that seems fair to us, but I would just hope that you would keep stabilizing over the next 2 weeks.
And I think that's what I was trying to express with
Please.
Glenn. and
Yes.
that, you know, he can keep that moving,
Yes,
keeping it stable. It's going to take
Yes.
some effort, obviously, Glenn, depending on the rain and
yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we need the plan and
Yeah. I
then
mean,
we
we're
can approve it.
already 2 weeks behind according to the nurseries because of the rain.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Anyone else? I don't know if we need to keep this public hearing open. Yeah, it's evolved into the applicant with us refining the parcel, I think, and what's between the applicant and the neighbors is kind of offline from this conversation. So with that, I guess I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing on this application.
I'll move.
Ernie moves. And Joe seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried, 4-0, so the public hearing's closed. Glenn, we'll see you, I guess, in a couple weeks. Well, the board will see you in a couple weeks.
Tuesday.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda, number 2, Howling Hills Minor Subdivision. The applicant is requesting approval to subdivide 57.6 acres into a 3-lot subdivision. We've seen this application at least once before, and so we continue the conversation. Good evening.
Good evening, Greg McMahon from McMahon LaRue Associates. We were here at your last meeting and presented the project, and then we alluded to a change in the driveway location and had a plan which we covered slightly. Since that time, we did resubmit a full set of plans with that relocated driveway. Site remained the same. Since that time, we have received a permit from the Corps of Engineers for that driveway location covered under the nationwide permit. We have also received verbal approval from the Monroe County Water Authority, actually by an email. They're ready to sign the plans as soon as we get them through the town. So from a water and a Corps standpoint, we're set. The one item that's cropped up several times is this cemetery that is reputed to be somewhere on the site. We know the fire marshal was out there and with Pat George and showed him where he felt it was. We are confident that our proposed driveway is nowhere near the cemeteries out near the road. And the owner is certainly willing, if some party is able to give them a more precise location, to put corner markers in on this of some type and memorialize it, you know, with a little better information. But again, all the work that's proposed, we don't see any impact where the cemetery is supposedly located.
So there's a record, just excuse me for a minute, but there's a record that there's a cemetery there in the past. There's no headstones, markers, or anything that would even indicate there's still a cemetery there?
No, there's not.
There's no record that it's been relocated or moved or anything like that,
Well, I
correct?
can't speak to that. Maybe Pat George has got some information, but we did receive from the town a letter today from a historian in Smithville, I think, or something like that. There was one of the pieces of correspondence that you alluded to in the beginning of the meeting. And she presented a little bit of history about the Lane family. Again, I won't go through it in detail, but apparently that it was flown with infrared imagery 10, 12 years ago, and there was some evidence, and you know, that there's been a previous owner was supposed to have marked it, but they never did. So there appears to be a lot of extraneous information, but again, if it's, you know, if someone can come out and say, you know, 100 by 100, it's right in this rectangle, then the family is willing to put some markers there to at least make it recoverable in the future. So again, that appears, that's the only correspondence we've received since our last meeting here.
Well, I know Babette Huber is here, town historian. Did you want to expand at all on what you wrote to the board or on this topic?
So, I've been here a while,
2 years.
few years, and I happened to be on that field trip out to your site. And we did have a person, and you didn't get this? We did have a person who had a metal detector. You could see it in the field because the grass is a different color. My concern has nothing to do with the driveway or with where you're going to put a bridge or anything. I just don't want you to be involved in going through a cemetery, because there are bodies there. There were 12 graves that were cited. The former owner did not want the town to put any kind of markers. And I think this is the perfect opportunity. We have a client here who is willing to put markers. We have, hopefully, we could go out again and see where approximately the area is, and it could be marked. I believe that Bob Graham was out there, and I think he did say that he thought there were a couple of markers really maybe deep that had fallen. I'm not sure about that. But it is an archaeologically sensitive area, and you do not want to do anything to disturb it. You know, the state kind of frowns on stuff like that. There's also the Mill Foundation that the state also says is archaeologically sensitive and would prefer that not be disturbed.
We know where that is?
Well, that's where they thought the cemetery was.
Okay.
Yeah, it's noted on the plan, closer to the existing house driveway.
All right, so it's farther away from
Yes.
your
even
work.
further than
Okay.
the
All right.
reputed cemetery.
So on your plans, do you show anything like that? You know, a
Yes.
historical location of the mill and,
Well, we
Well-
didn't refer to it as a mill.
okay.
No.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Any other
Okay.
questions you might have for me?
Board, anyone have? Al, Joe?
So Babette, could you mark out a 100 by 100 foot spot for the folks so
I-
that they
I
could put the
think
corner
that it-
markers?
I think I would try, but the best thing to do, that would be temporary. The best thing I would recommend is to get somebody out there with a metal detector, because the
Or-
nails are still there. And then you'd have a better idea of exactly where the.
More specific.
Yeah.
When you say nails, you're talking about property corners?
No, I'm
Nails?
talking about nails in the coffins.
Oh, I guess I didn't relate to it that way. I always think of GPR doing that work, you know, where it looks through the ground and finds.
Right. It just would help with when you're ready to, you may not sell it for another 50 years, but the next owner, if they want to do something and they come to the planning board and say, this is where I want to put utilities, that somebody has at least documentation, and it might be a good idea. We do have, Labella had done a cemetery, a map of all the cemeteries that were abandoned, as well as our active cemeteries. So, and I think they're very well marked.
Is this cemetery on that map?
Yes, it is, sir.
Wes, any comments on what would be the preferred way, I guess, to illustrate this, or?
For the cemetery?
Cemetery? I mean, the mill is the mill. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a foundation, you can show it as ruins, or,
We picked it up when we did the actual field survey, so
Yeah.
it's accurately shown on the plan.
okay, that's good. Like I said, I've been involved in a few projects where you got to be careful about where we are with cemeteries, and we've done ground penetrating radar rather than
Right.
looking for nails. It's not something I would have thought of right off the bat, but makes sense. So how is there a depth issue with those? I mean, do they usually shallower than deeper? Sorry for the questions, but Babette?
I really don't know.
Yeah, I don't know
And
what the
just had-
practice was.
I just had recommended to the applicant that once we find that area, put in like 4x4 corner markers. And then you won't disturb if they want to use the field for horses or something, then there won't be that,
Mm-hmm.
there won't be a concern about them getting
Okay.
hurt or whatever.
Any plan from your perspective to put a marker there that wasn't
No,
desired
it's
before?
private property.
Yeah. I mean, you know how we have these state historic markers, right? The yellow and blue ones.
If the owner would like that done, we can talk about it.
Okay. I didn't know how important it was, you know, to,
It was. I mean, we
Identify.
have one already for the Fisher family abandoned cemetery in Fishers, so we might,
I'm just looking for some consistency on what we're doing. And if that's something that the town would feel is important and we can identify where it was, then work with we don't have to do this
I'd
on the
be willing
board.
to do that.
But I'd like to see that happen if it makes sense.
But if it's a field, and if there are going to be animals in the field, and if the owner feels like it will cause a problem for the animals, I don't want to cause a problem.
Sure.
I want to solve a problem.
Okay. Fair enough.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Babette.
Right, so, I mean, the owner is willing to work with the town to make this happen.
Great. Okay, what else? Well, you said you've changed things a little bit on the plan, the driveway.
But just a driveway location, it didn't change, well, the plans you currently have depicted, and it's the same thing that you saw at the last meeting when we just introduced it to the board but hadn't submitted it.
Okay,
The house, the septic system, the grading is all remained consistent with what we had. We did get original comments on that original plan from the town engineer, which we addressed. Some of those comments went away with the relocation of the driveway. But, you know, I think we've, at least in our mind, we're in, you know, we've addressed everything that we've received.
okay. I'll open up to the board if there's any questions for the applicant or for Wes. No? Okay, I know, Wes, you wanted to chat
Yeah,
about.
so I know at the last planning board meeting, there was some concern expressed with regard to the project on the impact that this driveway and the grading would have in the floodplain and in the wetlands area. And I know that the driveway alignment has adjusted since your very first submission, right? And we understand that there's a culvert, elliptical type of culvert that's maybe 30 years old. Maybe that'll be replaced at some point. But I wanted to bring in someone that has a little more expertise in assessing and determining and sharing maybe the assessment of what the impacts of the proposed grading in that floodplain would have on the remainder of the property, and you know what would be happening upstream. So I've asked. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on your name. Oh my God, that's embarrassing, Dustin. I've asked Dustin Bradley to come to the meeting tonight, and I want to ask him if he could maybe come to the podium and characterize a little bit of what he's found in his review of the project.
It's just a sign of old age, Wes, when you
It is.
can't remember
Yeah.
names. You're not the only one to do that.
Hello, Dustin Bradley, LaBella Associates, certified floodplain manager, wetland ecologist. So my review of the plans, we are crossing a 100-year floodplain. It's an approximate zone, so there's no base flood elevations known along this floodplain. Generally,
So
the
that-
community is,
If you could just speak a little closer to the microphone. You're a
Yes.
pretty tall guy and the microphone's kind of short, so
I thought that might be a
I'll
problem.
make sure it gets picked up. Thanks.
Thank you. So again, we're in a 100-year floodplain. We're crossing it And with this driveway access, it's going to be potentially berming up the flood flows. And the town has some responsibility to consider effects to the floodplain and what those could have on adjacent properties. And so this flood flowing through there with potentially being kind of bermed up with the drive could increase the depth of the flood south of the drive. And with that area along the creek being relatively flat, the berm could, if that pipe blocks up, you could have quite a few feet of water there, maybe 5 feet of water depending on the height of that access. And that water could potentially back up to the existing home on Lot 1 and the cemetery, not to mention across the road. We just don't want to be impacting other properties with flooding. And if that does back up to the level of the drive, it could flow over top, erode that out, and cause a lot of water to rush downstream. There's structures just north of the property. So those are a couple things we need to consider when dealing with the floodplain. So we might want to see what effect this is going to have on the floodplain.
The existing corrugated pipe, the elliptical one, I'm looking at the profile on sheet 4 of their plans, and I don't know, Susie, do we have that? No? Okay. It's, all you need to do is overtop that pipe by looks like 6 inches, and it spreads out, right? The
Yeah.
floodplain widens out.
Existing, yeah.
But the embankment that's being proposed for the road, it looks like, is doing nothing but raising the height of the road over the pipe by at least 2.5 feet. And further to the east, it's increasing. So it's not a weir anymore, it's a dam
Right.
with a hole in it. And so because the floodplain spreads out, that doesn't mean that it's going to increase. If the pipe can handle it, it just comes up and the pipe handles it. Do you have a sense of what was done to show what flows could be handled by that pipe? Or does the applicant's engineer? You know what I'm saying, right? I mean, you understand where I'm coming from?
Well, I understand the pipe has capacity,
Yeah.
maximum capacity. There wasn't a detailed FEMA study done on that.
I'm thinking more of just a simple, USGS stream stats
Right,
calc
right,
and for finding out what's there. So,
right. I personally can't comment on that.
yeah,
but,
okay. I'll ask the applicant. Have you guys done a assessment of the pipe itself for the flows, since we're creating now a higher embankment that goes across there?
We haven't run a capacity on it. We have nothing to compare it to. As I said, this is, as opposed to other floodplains where FEMA has mapped it and they have flows, there are no flows that we can compare this to. And, this, if you want to call it a berm or where the road, this is no different than just a little bit further down to the south where this floodplain crosses the road, Blasey Road. You have the same situation. You have a road that's an embankment and you have a culvert underneath the road. And at some point, there's this culvert, and then there's culverts downstream. They're all different sizes. What happens, and we have floodplain managers in our firm, and we do a lot of floodplain work for FEMA.
Mm-hmm.
We've looked at this, and basically a floodplain it's a storage. It's not a floodway. It's not like the Genesee River has a floodway. These are storage. So by placing fill, what you're doing you're reducing the storage capacity by some amount. And with FEMA, you can't increase the flood elevation by more than a foot.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking probably fractions of an inch in the the total floodplain that this is impacting. So, you know, while we acknowledge that we're building a berm across, and the purpose of that is we want to keep our driveway up. We do know that the floodplain in Monroe County, which is mapped and has elevations, right at that county line, it's about 507.6. So, you know, if that's any indication, we're looking at a 100-year flood elevation around 507. But when FEMA chose to map this in Ontario County, they didn't map it to the extent that they did north in Monroe County.
Okay.
So,
I'm just looking on the USGS site while you're talking about for flood flows at this site.
You may have shared the condition of the pipe. Would you refresh our memory if you did share the condition of that?
Just a quick visual inspection, it looks to be good. It's going to be the contractor who is going to be doing the work for the family is going to do a video inspection of this pipe.
Okay.
And then determine if we have any issues either in the crown or the invert with it. It could conceivably be replaced, but it's going to be video inspected.
And what's the timing in terms of when that inspection might happen?
We have approvals to move
Okay,
forward
yeah.
with anything on the property,
All right,
so then we really can't do it.
okay.
We already are replacing, there's a
The 12-inch pipe?
12-inch pipe which is crushed.
Yeah, yeah. Are there, Dustin, would you be able to share, are there requirements with regard to replacing the pipe in a potential floodplain here?
So Army Corps and DEC have requirements for culvert sizing. So it's 25% larger than the stream at ordinary high water. So if the stream were to be 4 feet wide, the culvert would have to be 5 feet wide. I do also want to kind of respond to some of the comments that were made about the floodplain elevation. Just north of this site, there is a detailed flood study done, which does have flood elevations and a floodway. This site is in an approximate A zone on the preliminary mapping. So you can still obtain base flood elevations from that approximately, which from this site it appeared to be about 508, maybe 510 for base flood elevation. The house is it's no concern at all because it's, 20, 30 feet above this elevation, so that's not really a concern. So our concerns are kind of just limited to what effects that berm would have on the floodplain, upstream, downstream.
If they were going to replace that pipe, and because this isn't, well, my understanding is that this is not an established floodplain, they wouldn't need to get any approval from the town if they had a certified local floodplain administrator. There'd be no approval there?
There would be a floodplain development permit
Okay.
required, and you would have to be comfortable that no damage would be occurring on adjacent properties.
Okay. I guess my questions there, I'm trying to get at, if they do an inspection and they find that they do need to replace that, it sounds like there is some local review that would occur on that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any other recommendations, Dustin, for the planning board?
Yeah, I guess I have a couple ideas.
Okay.
You could consider alternative access, particularly maybe south of Lot 1, which would avoid crossing the creek altogether.
I can bring up an aerial photograph and maybe, is there a laser pointer there? You can be able to
Yep.
maybe point to it. Could you switch? Yeah.
So for alternative access, I was thinking in particular maybe here. swinging up to the house location.
And that avoids
Yeah.
any
so
stream crossing
That would
or,
avoid, yeah, the stream flowing through here, the flood zone kind of flowing through here. That would avoid crossing that if you would access, you could access through here potentially. So that maybe is worth exploring. Alternatively, if you wanted to make sure that that flood flow is getting through that berm, you could upsize that pipe to get more flow through there. And/or you could have a higher kind of bypass pipe just for flood flows. So you'd have a pipe for the creek base flow, and then you'd have a higher pipe kind of in the floodplain, or what used to be the floodplain, that would allow flood flows through when it needs to get a little more capacity through there.
okay. Turn it over to the planning board members if you have any questions for Dustin.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the USGS stream stats data for this crossing. It's about 1 square mile of drainage area. Trying to think of how much, I'm trying to find the volume, but it's not going to help unless you can do a calculation quick. But you can get the data for this and at least analyze the flow through it for a 100-year flood. To see how big the culvert is. I don't know how big the one is across the creek, across the road rather, just south of there, which would be upstream.
Yep.
I mean, I would want to at least compare it to that. But I guess that'd be the only comparison available. And you said if it's 30 years old, wouldn't it make sense to replace it anyway? And then if you're going to replace it, you want to make sure it's big enough. So the default would be 25% bigger than the creek, right?
Correct.
So that would be a start. I'm just looking for ways to assess the culvert itself to say, is it twice as big as it needs to be, or is it, smaller than it needs to be? That seems like a pretty basic question. If you're going to put in a whole new driveway and that there's the potential that you would raise the flood boundary because you've blocked off any chance for water to flow over the adjacent land from where that pipe is. So I don't know how feasible it is to run a driveway that far over from, below the house, upstream across the road so you don't have to cross the creek. But if you have to cross the creek because you want to keep that down, then I would suggest you replace the pipe with something that meets the needs of the creek, and that's a pretty easy calculation. I'm sure you guys in the office can do that. It's not a FEMA calculation, it's just a, USGS record flow from a 1 square mile drainage area, so.
Yeah, it's a 10-year storm.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, you'd calculate the 10-year event.
You have to be up at the mic, sorry. If I'm doing culverts under roads, it's a 100-year event, but 50 minimum, it's got to pass. 100 not to go over the road, as I'm sure you're aware.
For a
Yeah.
boat.
So I'm looking more just to keep it from going any higher than it already does. So I would think at least some calculations to show that would make sense. So regarding the rest of the site, running it across there, it should be fine. And I'm doing all the talking here. If the board has any other questions or,
I think you've covered it well from my perspective.
okay. Probably covered it too much.
No, not at all. I think it's still an open question.
Yeah. Ernie?
All set.
Okay. It's a public hearing. I should open up to see if there's anyone from the public that has any questions on the application. Seeing none, take a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move.
Al moves.
Second.
Ernie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried 4-0. Okay, so that's the public hearing closed. Wes, any other thoughts on the plan as presented, and can we at least have them come back with some calculations on the capacity of that culvert as a be a reasonable request?
Yeah, I guess I might even defer to Dustin if he could maybe advise, would that be helpful at all in terms of if the applicant was to provide calculations, you know, I mean, if you feel that that wouldn't help you as a planning board member make a decision.
At least show us how big the pipe is upstream. I mean, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
You know, if this one that's there now, okay, it might be aging. It's only 30 years old, so it's probably got some more life to it. If it's big enough or the same size as what's upstream, case closed in my opinion. But eventually when they replace the culvert, I would certainly want to make sure that it can handle the flow, because the town may want to replace the culvert with a right-sized culvert in the future, which could get bigger, which would send more flow down to this driveway. So that's why I go for these things, is I want to make sure we're covering it for the future as well as what you've got now. So if you can, I guess I would ask that before the plans get signed, you know, if we approve these, you know, this site plans, that they provide that and the town engineer can check that box.
Yeah, I mean, do you want us to, I mean, we can do the calculations, provide those to the town and the town engineer and work as a condition of approval, or do you want to, I mean,
That's what I'm suggesting.
yeah.
I'm not saying
yeah.
hold up the whole process.
Yeah, no, if we could keep the process moving, we're certainly, and if one of the solutions that Dustin mentioned is if we have to add, you know, maybe a 24-inch culvert higher up in the embankment to handle flood, I mean, we can look at the options that were mentioned, and I can work with the client on that, but if we can keep the process moving along, that would be
Okay,
helpful.
all right. So. What do we?
I don't know.
If I could, I guess I'll say one last thing about what maybe the town should need.
Sorry.
Maybe in regard to what the town would need from the applicant. The town has a responsibility with all current development and future development that the floodplain is not raised more than 1 foot. And we don't exactly know what all future development will be. So I think it's important that we keep floodplain impacts to a minimum to account for any future floodplain impacts. So I think we need essentially something that shows that we're having very, very minimal impacts on the floodplain by crossing.
Okay, thanks, Dustin. In a kind of a roundabout way, I think that's what I was also going towards. So,
All right, so considering that, right, and not knowing, maybe not having a firm grasp of where we are with impacts to the floodplains or impacts to property with regard to the floodplain, I don't know that I'm comfortable, I guess, right tonight to be able to close seeker.
okay,
And for that reason, I guess I would say, let's hold off on a resolution so that we can finalize seeker and then maybe take action at the next meeting, if the planning board is okay with that. I know that's not what the applicant was looking for tonight, but I guess that's my recommendation.
I think in 2 weeks, if we come, it's a simple calculation to figure out of how this impacts the floodplain. In my business, we do the same all the time, so, and we have to do it for public roads, I think, because this is between 2 public roads, and you've got that potential for impact, that we need to have this, you know, for a stream. It's not a driveway culvert for, you know, a ditch. It's a stream that has a blue line that has a 1 square mile drainage area, so we want to make sure that it's not going to increase the flood levels. And if there's a future need to, like I said, replace a culvert in the road, it needs to have the capacity to do that. So otherwise, now you're just taking that, sending it to your problem, and your bigger problem at your site. So I'd say in 2 weeks, we'll see you again. We'll be prepared to deal with it if you can answer the questions regarding the culvert and the floodplain. So, okay? All right. I think we're good. Thank you.
Dustin, thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is High Point Business Park, Building 300 addition. And I see Mr. Kritikos and Mr. Rinaldi here.
Hey everyone, how are you guys all doing tonight? I'm James Kritikos, I'm with BME Associates. Here with me this evening is both Fred Rinaldi and Joe Bader from High Point 300 LLC. We're very excited to be here for this proposed building addition to the Building 3, the northernmost of the office buildings in the High Point Business Park PDD. What we're looking to do is we're proposing 2 additions. The primary one is on the southeast corner of the building, closest to the road. This is the main massing of the addition. It's approximately 2 stories.
You got a laser pointer right there if you want to point to it.
Perfect. Yeah, so we're talking this area here. So this is about 2 stories. We're roughly about 15,000 square feet of gross area we're adding to the building there. Again, that's going to mainly be office areas and just kind of expanding on the existing uses. The other addition is a small, about 560 square foot cube at the main drop-off area. This allows us to create a dedicated entrance to the remaining balance of the space, kind of at the southern portion. The way the building's configured now, if you walk in the main entrance, you kind of got to go down a little uninviting hallway-ish. It's not as quite of a direct entry into the space. So with this addition, Rinaldi's will be looking to lease the remaining balance of High Point 300. So we're going to occupy about 50,000 square feet of vacant space, plus all the addition that we're proposing now. This allows us to bring in a tenant to fill it all at once. With this, there's a little bit of work. All the water utilities are going to be plumbed from inside. We've confirmed with the Water Authority they don't need to see this application. They've already given us their blessing. Besides that, the only other entities not involved directly with the town are RG&E, who again we've been in contact with. They can, increase our service size and do what they need to support this addition. In terms of other commentary, we had some comments from Farmington Water and Sewer. As part of the project, we do need to make a little bit of adjustment to the sanitary manhole that sits on our property. This isn't a town easement. Basically, it's going to sit below where the addition is, so we're just looking to remove the manhole, cut out a section of pipe, and put a new manhole at the end of that line that we're going to kind of shorten up. And then we're just going to dissolve and reestablish the easement or just update the meets and bounds, whatever the preference of the town. We did some similar things with the Woods of Allentown a couple of years ago. In terms of site improvements, we are going to be looking to realign the shared access drive that sits south of the main building mass. This is going to be, it's shared between Building 300 and Building 200, which is a little bit off the page here. Basically, this drive serves as our aerial fire apparatus access lane for the building. So with the addition, we're kind of coming a little bit south. So we need to pull the drive south just to maintain the minimum separation from that. We did do an initial review with Bob Graham, the fire marshal, just to make sure the layout was good in his eyes before we actually put the plans together, just to make sure we didn't get tripped up with any revisions or anything. In terms of the site green space, we're actually at an increase in green space from what we were approved at back in 2019. As we were going through the development build process, we realized that we were going to be way over parked out here. So one of the things we did with a field change was we worked with the town and we applied the leasable square footage to our parking ratio instead of the gross building square footage. So we actually knocked down a portion of the parking up under the power lines up here. There still is a little section of land bank parking there. If we do build that out, we're still about 4 parking spaces per 1,000 square foot of leasable area on the site, which is well more than what we need out here, especially with kind of the shift to more remote work after COVID a couple of years ago. In terms of stormwater runoff, we have a little bit of on-site storm utilities we're going to be modifying up here where we have to build this addition, but all the drainage is going to go through the existing conveyance systems, basically wraps around the power line parking lot and then comes into the central stormwater forebay sits in the middle of High Point Drive. There's an equalization pipe that goes under the road, and then there's the northern part, which is an infiltration basin that was constructed, I think, about 10 years ago when we built High Point Drive. It's been in operation since. It was sized to take, obviously, all the office buildings as well as some of the townhouse portions. And then as part of the Woods of Valentine project, there was a small expansion of that. But when we went through the approvals in 2019, we did verify with Labella that the drainage was sized accordingly for what we're taking there now. And obviously, since we're at an increase in green space by a little bit, we're still below that threshold. In terms of lighting, we're just going to have building-mounted lighting at the two entrances that we're proposing. So the main one by the drop-off, as well as a small secondary access with a little set of stairs on the south side. So those are the only building-mounted fixtures we're looking at. We do have two other light poles that sit along the drive today. We're just going to basically realign those with the road. They're still going to sit on High Point 200's parcel. They were installed with High Point 200. So there really isn't any changeover. Yep, there you go. So there's the two light poles. They just shift south, I think, about 5 or 6 feet. The other building-mounted fixtures are right there at the entrance and then right there. With the improvements, we're going to be looking to add some more landscaping. We did have some landscaping that was proposed back when we did the first terrace edition last year. The planting season kind of got away from us last year, and by the end of the year, we kind of knew this was coming. So we held off on doing those plantings, knowing that we would just update them and/or have to remove some as part of this application. We do have an existing monument sign that's on site today. We do need to relocate it. It's going to sit about right here. I did talk with Wes earlier today about this. This was a permitted sign through the building department. However, he did, in one of his comments from the town engineer, they did note that we need to comply with a couple code requirements, one of them being setback of 35 feet from the pavement. The way we have the plan shown right now, I think it's about 31, 32. We have enough space, we can just shift that back, and we'll work with the building department to make sure that we're in compliance with any other parts of the code. The only other thing I think that we provided in our engineer's report or narrative, we did provide a little bit of a seeker comparison to some of the overall impacts from the High Point PDD Business Park. Basically, our addition here is going to result in about a 10% increase to High Point Building 300, and it's about just a shy of 4% for the total gross square footage of the office space in between the three buildings. We did include a updated traffic study with this. We looked at the same intersections we looked at before when we did the PDD, as well as went through the recent updates with the Woods of Valentine. So we looked at Valentine and High Point Drive, as well as High Street and Valentine Road, 96 and High Street, as well as 96 and Cobblestone Court. So the major intersections. Basically what we found is that even with this addition, we're still below what the original growth projections were. So the levels of service are all consistent at all the intersections, a couple up or down, but some of that has to do with just the modeling self-optimizing itself. If you guys are familiar with traffic computer models at all.
That take into consideration future condominium / apartments and all that?
Yep. Yeah, but we took in the whole growth, so this is basically, we took counts assuming, we were gonna add another 50,000 square feet of office space plus our addition, plus what was accounted for at the Woods of Valentine. So again, it's all in the same levels of service, so basically no impacts. Plus all the mitigation that was originally identified with the DEIS when we back in 2005. All those improvements have been completed. It involved a handful of things on 96, Valentine Road, and High Street Light, and some other various improvements. So all those mitigation measures have been in place, and everything up there has been, functioning as expected. In terms of comments, we did receive comments from everybody on the town staff. We were provided written responses to all of them except for the town engineer comments, which we just received this afternoon. We did have a chance to review them. I think they're pretty straightforward. I'd be happy to talk about any of those specifically. I think the only real comments that were kind of in question are the architectural comments. We did just provide a letter from Hanlon Architects, I think this afternoon, right about 4 o'clock. So I don't know if you've had an opportunity To read that in general, the commentary, in our opinion, was kind of just a comparison to the overlay district along 96 and what the intent was. Obviously not taking fully into consideration that this is a, close to a 20-year project, PDD, architectural styles. The comments were kind of more in line like this was going to be a new self-standing building as opposed to a natural extension of High Point 300 and really trying to add some other architectural features. I know the letter from Hanlon's does a better job articulating, some of the building depths and things that this will incorporate. But basically, we feel, what we're proposing, fits in with the character of the business park that we've established. It's not looking to, change anything with this small, addition to the office buildings. And I know Fred will speak to some more on why we're doing some of the things here, some of the features like the glass and the natural lighting it creates. But I'm happy to answer any other site questions, building questions, architectural questions. Fred and Joe we can handle whatever you guys have questions on.
Joe, any questions?
I do about the architectural issues. I'm not sure if these regulations that are Labella cited are deal breakers, if there's something that we should consider in our approvals. I'm not sure. It's something that we're supposed to discuss with the applicant, but I don't know what weight these different citations actually have and what bearing they should have on our decision whether we approve or not. So is there an opportunity to clear that up for me?
Yeah, so I guess my initial thought is, while those architectural elements are part of the zoning code, this is a planned development district, and I think that gives you the flexibility to be able to, not adhere so tightly to the architectural requirements in the code. I think you have that flexibility here.
Okay, thank you.
And as I recall, we had some pretty specific commentary that to the applicant, to Rinaldi's, when they first proposed these buildings. I mean, that it's a different architecture than what you may see down on 96 or 250 corridor from the architectural guidelines. This is kind of a high-end office building, so.
Yeah, and to be clear, I think it looks pretty good. I was just concerned where, these look like, I'm used to looking at like OSHA regs, and they're written the same way, and I didn't know what weight
these are
these things have.
guidelines. We have recommendations. We don't have hard and fast rules. You cannot use glass anywhere. We don't have that. It's a.
Okay, fair enough. No, and again, to reiterate, I think the building looks good, so I was just concerned about the legalese.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Al?
Just to build on that, I think that the architectural features of the proposed addition are very much in keeping with the existing architecture of the building, so I have
Okay.
no issue with it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Ernie?
Do you have a tenant for this space now?
We do. Yes, we do.
Are you at liberty to tell us who it is?
We are not at this time. What I can tell you is that, first of all, just to follow the rules, Fred Rinaldi from High Point. And thank you, Joe. I have 2 decades. I learn a little bit every once in a while. We do have a prospective tenant for the space. What I can tell you is that, as a testament to the process, and looking back into the early 2000s, and not only in coordination with the town and the boards and all the reviewing agencies, of which there were quite many, also involved was the Ontario County IDA. And the goal was to create a world-class corporate office park, which demanded that it had the ability to do several things. One, be future-proof, both by way of its design, functionality, and care of the site. And we've enjoyed awesome organic growth on site. And one of the cool things about having symmetry and a congruent architectural style across the 3 buildings is that we can expand and contract and be practical and, again, future-proof to the needs of office tenants. I am not giving up on what was the version of our norm, but we are certainly armed here with a unique product to allow us to find great success in tenanting these buildings. Not only do we have a tenant for the balance of Building 300, which would include servicing the 15,000 square foot expansion, but we're very excited that in the next few weeks and months, we'll be proposing the final lease-up portions for Building 100. Within each of these buildings, and I'm sure if my father's been in earshot of you, he'll tell you how proud of them he is, they were always designed to have a terracing, almost pyramid effect. And in addition to having great functionality, there's something that creates an almost immediate emotional attachment with our tenant employees in this building. And it's almost like a shared pride of ownership. And with this expansion to 300 almost gives us that, an opportunity to terrace it. And that we're very, very excited about that. The composition of this office park has had a great and very important new purpose in the light of lease-up and meeting the needs of modern office space. And we are very excited to have accepted this role, not only as landlord, but as a partner in attracting and retaining tenants and tenant employees, and building a catalog of really amazing things that really encourage people to come to work, enjoy the process of being there, and for that not to be laborious. And between the retail phases, which was a part of this awesome review and planning throughout all the boards, and the office park, we're feeling like we did a lot of really great homework to put us in a place to be successful with keeping this park full. And it is firmly what I expect to do.
Is this building presently vacant?
So the building right now is 150,000 square feet total. First American Equipment Finance occupies about 85,000 square feet. Morgan Properties of Pennsylvania operates about 22,000 square feet, and the balance would be the 50 that is now currently available, plus the additional 15 that would be created by the way of the addition.
I see you have First American there, too.
First American and Morgan are there currently.
They staying?
Are they staying? Oh, yeah. Yep. These buildings have just shy of 100-car underground parking. There's common gyms and common conference rooms, technology, hiking trails. If you were to go up there, and I was sharing a couple stories with Dave Wright, we have dozens of run clubs, Grok biking clubs, Tom's for Bike. These trails are in use all the time. On a recent tour, I was accused of posturing the people running around the buildings during the tour itself. And what's awesome is that the public has adopted these things. The tenant employees have adopted these things. I have a retail tenant down in the retail phase 3. It's called Neon Wave. We have a run club, and we have dozens and dozens of runners that come on a regular basis and enjoy these trail systems. And so this has become not only an awesome place to work, but it has become a very personal place to recreate and find quality of life beyond the office hours.
So it's all open to the public?
All the hiking trails, the retail, all the surface area up there, the beautiful historic portions. Bette Huber would be so proud because we preserved, everything that we had anticipated to and wanted to, plus. And so what you're going to see as we continue to evolve the project are going to be a lot of the fun elements, the wayfinding stations, the celebration of the history that is consumable. Life moves so fast, we're going to break it down into parts that can be absorbed and celebrated, and we have people that come here from all over the place. The reason that Rivian was presenting to this board is they've chosen our area as a centralized location where people pass to find recreation, whether it be the Adirondacks or the Great Lakes or the Finger Lakes. We're in the epicenter, and that comes with great responsibility. So this will be a never-ending process to perfect this hill, and so this is one important part, because it's not as fun having all these cool things if people aren't there to celebrate them.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Leave it open to the public. It is a public hearing. Anyone wish to speak to the application, either with the applicant or the board? Hearing none. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move.
Al moves.
Second.
Ernie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. Wes, any comments?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. The comment letter that we released today, very minor comments, a traffic notation. We talked, the applicant's design engineer talked about the sign relocation, and then we're looking maybe for a catalog cut sheet for the building mounted light fixture, and then just a signature block on the plans, plan set. We did have the opportunity to take a look at and review the seeker comparison that the applicant provided. That was very helpful. And looking at the traffic from the seeker finding statement all the way back from 2005, there were certain elements, there are certain portions, certain improvements that needed to be done to allow this project to move forward. And I can just go through those here real quickly, and because they've all been completed. Phase 1 improvements, which will be completed in conjunction with the initial project construction of Lot 1, included widening the cobblestone court, New York State Route 96, the Kmart entrance drive, lengthening the left turn and right turn lanes on New York State Route 96 at the same entrance drive, lengthening the left and right turn lanes on New York State Route 96 at High Street, widening High Street to provide 3 lanes entering into New York State Route 96, modifying the traffic signals at the Route 96, the Kmart entrance drive intersection, and at the intersection of Route 96 and High Street. The Phase 2 highway improvements will be constructed by the applicant concurrent with the development of the second office building on Lot 3, and will include improvements recommended for the balance of construction within the project at full build-out. The Phase 2 highway improvements include further widening of the High Street through and past the Valentine Road intersection, including installation of a southbound left turn lane at the intersection with Valentine Road, construction of a left turn lane on Valentine Road at High Street, including provisions for and/or installation of a traffic signal at the intersection of if recommended by an updated traffic analysis, and installation of a no right turn on red electronic sign restricting northbound traffic on Route 96 at this Cobblestone Court High Point entrance from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. weekdays. So, we've had the opportunity to look at the submission. What's being proposed here is not going to cause an increase in traffic from what was previously anticipated. So we don't have any concerns in that regard. So.
And everything conforms to the PDD in terms of
Correct.
setbacks and.
Yep. Square footage, size, the setbacks of the addition, the buildings, all the buildings
Green
were
space,
were
all
okay
that,
there.
yeah. So, okay, thanks. Any other thoughts or comments, James?
I don't think so. I mean, thinks we kind of covered on everything, but obviously if there's anything else, we can
Okay.
keep chatting.
It's a beautiful looking thing that Mr. Hanlon did. I think he's a very good architect, and he's always come up with good sets of plans for your projects. So this is no exception. I think it looks nice.
He's had some time to learn and perfect. We feel that we've truly instituted a product here that's going to serve a great purpose, not only in this township but the region. And we're trying to lead by example to build faith that this is a product that deserves to be here. We do have a demand for it, and it is worth all of the process to accomplish it. And so, we're anxious to build momentum and get moving with this for certain.
Okay. We have a resolution that addresses this application, so I'll read it. Thank you, gentlemen. 3 years. Let's just give me a couple notes on this. Okay. Yep. Okay. Thanks. All right, so for the application 8 SP 2023, whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact, and there are 12 of them. Number 4, slightly modified in the copy that you may have. The proposed site plan modification is an unlisted action pursuant to New York State Department Environmental Quality Review Act regulations and classified as such, concludes seeker. Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board directs that the negative declaration be prepared, and further be it resolved that the application of High Point 200 LLC, should it be 300 or 200? 300. 205 St. Paul Street, Suite 200, Rochester, New York. Site plan entitled High Point Business Park Building 300 Edition, drawn by BME Associates, dated April 30th, 2024, received by the Planning Board it's April 26th. We must have received it either before the date or, Lisa, do you know? I have a drawing dated after we received it, or before.
The future.
We may have dated it based on like when the actual submission deadline was to the town, so it may be post.
We'll fix the dates. Planning Board application ASP 2023 be approved with the following conditions. Conditions to be addressed prior to chairman's signature on the site plan. Number one, the standard. Number two, that any exterior lighting be compliant to code and approved by the code enforcement officer. Number three, that comments on a letter dated May 14th, 2024 from Labella Associates be addressed. Number four, that the comments in a letter dated May 1st, 2024 from Zaretsky and Associates be addressed. I think the board has addressed those comments by accepting the architecture as proposed. So I'll leave it at that. That the comments in a letter dated May 7th, 2024 from Code Enforcement Officer be addressed. Number six, that the comments in a letter dated May 1st, 2024 architectural consultant be addressed. That's redundant. Number seven, that the comments in a letter dated May 6, 2024 from Town of Farmington Water and Sewer be addressed. Ongoing conditions, both are standard, and be further resolved that the planning board secretary distribute the appropriate standard conditions with the planning board's approval letter. So with those modifications or updates, do I hear a motion for approval of that resolution?
I'll move.
Ernie moves.
Second.
Joe seconds. All in favor? Aye. Carried 4-0. So,
Wonderful. Thank you guys very much, and we'll be back to see you guys for something else soon, I'm sure.
good luck.
Thank you, sincerely. It's it's great to see you guys. I hope to get back into a rhythm here. So cheers.
So, get back to my agenda. Sketch application, not a public hearing, Hardy subdivision, 7590 North Road, owner Marshall Hardy. Applicant is requesting acknowledgement of complete application for the subdivision of 36.30 acre parcel into two lots, with the existing home located on lot R1 and 9.585 acres. Lot R1A consists of remaining 26.719 acres and a proposed residential home. This is the first step in a major subdivision, and only acknowledgement of its completed application will be considered at this meeting. Marshall here? There he is. Sorry, Marshall. I'm looking in the wrong direction every time tonight. And this is something I believe we had an informal discussion on previously.
Good evening. You said it all, Joe. It's all I'm looking for.
Maybe you can comment, I guess, on any changes or things that we saw from the past.
I'm sorry, comment on?
Any changes or comments on what has changed since when we had an informal discussion? Have you rethought anything, or is it pretty much the same?
Pretty much the same, yeah. There's, so far, it's gone very smoothly, thank you.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Hardy?
No, I asked them all last time.
Yeah. Wes, any comments?
No, not for the sketch plan.
Okay, great. I think the only comment I would make is we did talk about modifying the conservation easements, and that showed up that way on the previous plan, I believe, as we were discussing it, and I don't think it's changed. Do you recall, Wes? I think the town I do,
My understanding is that the town is accepting of the reconfiguration of the conservation easement, so
okay.
I think that's fine.
All right, well, it'll all be shown in final, so. I guess we're all set for tonight. In terms of that, I'll put the resolution forward for your sketch plan approval. Application 3SK 2024, whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact. I'll read number 1. A sketch plan application consisting of, but not limited to, a letter of intent, sketch plan application form, sketch plan drawing set, tax map exhibit, and aerial photograph were received on April 3rd, 2024 from Marshall Hardy, the applicant, by Secretary of the Planning Board for a major subdivision entitled Hardy Subdivision, the project, for the property located at 7390 North Road, Victor, New York. And there are 5 other whereases. Now therefore be resolved that regarding the sketch plan application of Marshall Hardy, major subdivision entitled Hardy Subdivision, drawn by McMahon LaRue Associates, dated February 2024, received by the Planning Board, April 2024, Planning Board application at 3SK 2024. Planning Board acknowledges receipt of a complete sketch plan application, and be it further resolved that the Planning Board Secretary forward a copy of this resolution to the applicant. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move.
Al moves.
I'll second.
Ernie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sketch plan's approved. See you next time. You're welcome. So the last item we have on the agenda, Highline Park. Public hearing is open on this. It's application 2PS 2024 and 1FS 2024. Owner Morel Builders, applicants requesting preliminary approval to develop under the clustering provisions for 26 for-sale townhome lots, 1 HOA lot, and 1 lot consisting of 3 apartment building and 120 units. This will be the second and third step in a 3-step process of major subdivision. Sketch plan was acknowledged complete April 9th, 2024. Good evening.
Excuse me. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the board. My name is Cole Papasergi with Marathon Engineering. With me today is Scott Morel and Bill Areno with the development team, Morel Builders. We're here today to be before you with a relatively simple application, and I say that because this is a project that you guys have seen before and approved before, and this is kind of just a slight modification to that previously approved project. So this was approved back in 2021, and for several factors it's been delayed as far as construction, but it is now under construction currently. But specifically today, we are here because the townhome units, specifically the 26 as shown to the west on the site plan, instead of for rent, is how they were previously approved in the PDD approval back in 2021, we are going to for sale. So that basically means that they need property lines over each one. So it's in general pretty much the exact same thing that you guys have seen before. There's a couple small little minor tweaks, but passing the eye test, it looks exactly the same. The buildings are pretty much the exact same spot, and they just have some property lines around them. Two of the ones, little minor adjustments were the addition of a pool house, which most pools have. That's going to be for storage and maintenance of the pool. And then some EV charging stations over by the apartment buildings. So there's 4 EV charging spaces that were added towards the eastmost apartment building. There's also some technical utility and grading changes, nothing significant, all less than like 6 inches. And that's really just to coordinate the final building plans with the townhomes and the MEPs and technical stuff, making sure that we have the right sized utilities to match the building stuff now that they're finally designed. A relatively, as part of going to for sale on the townhomes, that drives us to dedicate the water main that goes up through that portion of the site. That would be dedicated to the water authority and include like a 20-foot easement that goes centers on that water main. And then what goes along with that is just a little bit of coordination with the different utilities to play with that easement. So there's slight shifts in the property lines to the from what you saw at sketch plan level, but very minor, and they're reflected on the render before you. And they're hard to tell. One notable one was unit 19 and 20, just kind of rotating slightly. But no, I'd like to emphasize, no townhomes will be within the 100-foot residential buffer that was set with the PDD. Nor will any building be closer than the 25-foot external setback that was also set in the PDD. These are just kind of property lines that go over what was already approved. A benefit to dedicating the water main, there was previously a hot box at the front of the site, a big ugly metal box that is needed to protect the water supply for a private water main. Since that will be dedicated, we can move that box internal to the site where it's out of the way from the public road there. Lastly, I'd like to note that we're in discussion with town staff to provide a alternative pavement section for the townhome roadway. It's just a different alternative with a geogrid than what is in the town criteria. But we're working through town staff with that, but we'd like to formally request the waiver. And with that, I touched upon all the major aspects of this, I think, but I'll open it up to any questions the board may have.
Okay, thank you. Wes, any, I guess I'd start with you.
Sure, yeah, thanks. We've looked at this project, we've looked at the, what they're proposing and the changes. And as the applicant's design professional characterized, the only change is the addition of about a 300 square foot, correct me if I'm wrong on the size, the 300 square foot pool house, and then associated grading right in that immediate vicinity. Everything else pretty much remains as was initially proposed, just creating the lot lines so that each of those townhouse units could be offered for sale. I did have an opportunity to talk with Wade Daly in our office about the pavement section and the request to use this. It's a Tensar, like a geofabric type of material that would be placed on top of the subgrade, and then on top of that, I guess, would be a section of stone and section of pavement. And what that does, what that affords is less of, you need less stone and potentially less asphalt pavement section, which is a cost savings to creating the roadway if they put that Tensar geofabric down. So we have no doubt that the geofabric in that particular section that they've proposed would accommodate and withstand the demands that would be required of the typical traffic that would be going in that area. The only concern that we have is future maintenance. We understand that this road is not going to be offered in dedication to the town today, right? So in that regard, we're not concerned. However, there have been instances where at some point in time, an HOA may approach the town and say, you know, we'd like for the town to maintain this roadway. We're not able to do it anymore. And if for some reason that there is a need to dig up a utility or there's multiple service laterals, traversing the roadway. Our only concern is that if the material needs to be dug up, if you think about an excavator kind of digging into the roadway, you might encounter this geotextile or this geofabric, or it's not a fabric, it's geomesh, and that would be severed, and that would maybe compromise the integrity of the roadway if it's cut into sections. You might have to do some overlays and so forth.
Wes, is this a filter fabric, or is this something to reinforce the soil?
It'd be more of a reinforcement for the soil.
So fines can migrate through it?
Yes,
as
that's my
opposed-
understanding.
As opposed to a filter, correct?
Yep, yep.
Isolate the lower from the upper for freeze thaw,
Yep.
Hole's about as big as,
Yeah.
big as my fingers.
So that's
Okay, so it's reinforcing. Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. It's meant to help disperse, I think, the load.
Mhm. Yeah,
with-
I just was trying to get my hands around what's the point of putting it in.
yeah.
So it's a strengthening issue. Is that because the base material, the existing ground is weak?
It's being driven by less excavation on site, so we can get the thickness a little bit smaller.
Okay,
This geogrid provides the strength to then reduce this section a couple of inches.
all right, so there's, I remember right, you said there's some granular material, then the geogrid, I'll call it, then subbase, then asphalt.
It's geogrid and then the stone on top of the geogrid that interlocks with it.
Okay,
And when it pushes into the grid, it locks with it, so
is
it
there
can't go
natural
out.
soil, is it, you just lay it on bare soil?
Yep.
So you don't put down a,
Yep, compacted subbase.
all right, thank you. Go ahead, Wes, sorry.
Yeah, so it's just, only as a precautionary measure, I think, Labella recommends not using that as a pavement section for the townhouse area. If we want to talk about using it elsewhere and think about strategically where it could be used, I think we're happy to do that. Maybe there are some areas that it would be advantageous to use, just in the event that the road is eventually offered in dedication. I don't think the town is prepared to deal with that at this point.
Has the highway department been consulted?
I do think, Wes, that this roadway, we're aware that that does sometimes happen, the HOAs come to the town, but in this case, because of the access to the road is through an easement and not actual parcel, I don't think that the town would actually be able to take dedication in any scenario.
So in the future, if that's a request by the residents, you're saying we can't do that,
Not possible.
or we're not interested in doing that, or they may say, even if they could, we don't want it because we don't like the design of it. I'm just looking at all scenarios. You're saying
They would have
can't
to,
because it has to go through. I
it's
mean, they have
not
to rearrange some right of way.
dedication, it'd be through an easement, which isn't.
Yeah, I don't know that there's anything that would say that a parcel or a right-of-way couldn't be created in the future. I'm not sure exactly how that might happen. So I did not consult the highway superintendent.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if Wade did. We could talk with him.
Well, I'm just, want to make sure it's clear that the town may decide it doesn't want it in the future if that's a request by the HOA because of the design of the driveway. And if you're okay with that, that would have to be something that they would address at the time with the town highway department. You could clear it up by asking now, I suppose, to see if they're interested in even considering it, or you could make the blanket statement, or they could.
Are there other areas in this development where you would use that GeoGrid?
Yeah, we've had some pretty good.
Scott Morrell, right?
Scott Morrell. I should know. I was listening to Fred 20 years. I'm like, I think I'm 30. But we've had some experience in Canandaigua lot, and the material that's there is a very stony-based material, so it is very tight. So if it was a clay punchy, it's not that at Highline at the site, but we have had great success with it in the past. So maybe that gives even a further defense to the town, because, I mean, we went to a different, a different spec, and that's, where you would not be able to dedicate it. Our intent is, I mean, when you say with costs, the costs are fairly close, but we found that using that actually, and that's become a requirement in the town of Canandaigua, actually, for all the dedicated roads, and we found that it's very effective. So to us, I mean, if you choose otherwise, I mean, for us, we want the progression to keep moving forward. So we're open if you decide not to, but I think the defense could help, and also what he had spoke of about the easement. And the scenarios when you pay for the material, it's pretty close in cost.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes more sense to me, that you're posing a thinner section because the soil's already very good underneath it.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
So, and we want a very good road. So, I mean, when the engineers have reviewed this, and the manufacturing will defend that it has a better strength than what we're proposing.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Yeah, and Wade did indicate that structurally, what they would use here if they were to use that GeoGrid, no problem, right? We wouldn't have a problem with that.
Okay. Anything else that I mean, it's, like you said, we've seen this, and
I don't think so. I guess with regard to seeker, really the only modification that I saw was what I noted, the pool house and the associated grading, and those things themselves alone would constitute a type 2 action, meaning that no further seeker review would be required. However, the subdivision component, I think that just creating the lot lines, it's kind of weird, but I guess, well, creating the lot lines isn't weird, but the seeker component, I think that kicks it up to an unlisted action, so you'll have to make a determination of significance before taking action. That's it.
okay, thanks.
Yep.
Members of the board? Joe? Al? Ernie?
We beat this up pretty good the last time.
Yeah,
so-
okay. It's, public hearing's still open, so I'll open it, and if there is comments, please feel free. All right.
Good evening, David Wright, 33 Ketchum Street, representing Victor Hiking Trails. The last time this project was before the planning board, the Morels, to have a trail around the perimeter of the property. And I didn't see it on any of the plans, so I just asking if there's still the intent to have a trail around the perimeter of the property, with the possibility of future connection from this property to the Auburn Trail. So that's my question.
Okay. Care to address it?
Yeah, I think that was, I think Dave, you spoke to probably Jeff about that, but that is certainly, I mean, like a natural type trail, we're certainly open to that.
Yeah, when I spoke with Jeff, we were thinking, just a 10-foot wide natural trail, primarily for the residents there. But we would, of course, want it to be a town easement trail, so that if perchance Victor Hiking Trails is not around to help maintain it, that the town would be able to maintain it.
Yeah, I mean, and I know Jeff has had those conversations, so we're certainly open to doing that where we can accommodate that.
Was there a trail route established back in the day when this first came?
There wasn't, so I think that would be something that we would have to put
Yeah.
together.
We would work together to do what makes sense, because there are some slopes there that we would want.
Microphone, Dave.
There are some slopes there that we would have to contend with, and we also talked about the possibility of connecting to the north with the adjoining properties. So that could be the future connection. But yeah, we didn't get into exactly where it'd be, except that we knew it would have to be around the perimeter. We're not gonna go through the middle of the property,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Anyone else comment?
Good evening.
Evening.
Michael Beester, 7622 County Road 42. So you guys are killing me. You keep making this project the last item on the agenda.
It's got to be last.
I just get to be last all the time. So,
We're here just as long as you are, so.
I know you are. Thank you for your service. I appreciate it. So my major concern was that I'm new to the neighborhood. I'm trying to get up to speed on this project. And I'm not adjoining to the project, but I am going to be able to see, it looks like Building 3, the apartment Building 3. So my major concern was line of sight analysis, and I also asked Bill for view shed analysis. And I'll give Merrill Builders credit. They came out to my property last week, and we walked the property line between, it looks like Building 3 and Heritage Packaging. And I think we've come to an agreement that it's a mutual interest that we have a landscape plan there. Because I don't want to see those apartments, and due to the line of sight, I will be able to. And Bill's telling me that the tenants are not going to want to see me. So I guess I'm asking for the board to help me hold the builder to that agreement, that the green space and the landscape plan be put in place.
Wes is going to have Susie bring up.
So my property is here.
Well,
We're bringing up an aerial photograph.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you could point to it with a laser pointer, that would be helpful.
Let me see here. So this is Finger Lakes Roofing, and this would be the Golisano Foundation. So this is my property. This is Heritage Packaging. So Bill and I walked back here, and there's already existing brush, so that's, there's already a green space there. I believe there's a 25-foot setback. Is that the rules for where the apartments would go in? That was a question.
Yeah. Looking at the plans to see if.
Back here, there's a 25-foot setback where that apartment will go.
That'd be a side setback on the lot. I'm looking at my computer for the same reason.
Okay. I guess while you look that up, I was not aware that there was a proposal for a hiking trail, so I don't know how that would impact the landscaping on that particular side of the apartment. If that's going to remove vegetation, that's not to our benefit.
Could you describe some of the the elevation change or topography from your property here? Is this higher or lower than your property?
So Bill was kind enough to actually give me the sightline analysis, and I'm sitting at about 600 feet, and I think the plan is to put it at essentially 600 feet. So the sight line has me looking at that apartment. But there's vegetation in place now,
Okay.
and if we keep the vegetation in place, and if we agree to add vegetation, then I think we can be good neighbors.
Oh, the vegetation that's here along this property line between your house and this building here.
That's Golisano Foundation,
Yeah.
yes.
Are those mature trees? What?
Those are mature trees, the majority of those are mine. So the issue is going to be diagonal. So from my backyard, I'll be able to diagonally see that apartment complex. And that was my concern when I was here the first time. I was just trying to get up to speed as to where those buildings were going to be and how many windows are going to be looking into my sunroom in my backyard.
So just for perspective, the distance here from the back of this house to that property line up there is about 330 feet, 320 feet.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Well, I don't have a copy of the landscaping plan in front of me. I don't know if anybody does, maybe the applicant. Is there any landscaping proposed there?
Yeah, I think I can comment to this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've always done this in the past, and I think we showed him where the sight line was. But I wouldn't want to, change the landscape plan that is already approved. But we already stated with him that we would certainly meet with you. And as the structure also goes up, is probably the best time to then say, hey, let's work with you to, do some enhancement with that. So, I mean, that's what we've done in the past. It's best when we put the infrastructure in and put the, and have the structure in, and we will certainly work with him with that. Rather than saying, oh, we're gonna, I'd rather not deviate the plan and keep moving forward.
Yeah.
But, for us, that would always be the intent.
Yeah, okay. So just out of perspective here, right? This plan was already approved in terms of where the buildings are going, the landscaping, the parking, the lighting, and seeker, the planning board took action on seeker and issued a negative declaration. So this board has already determined that the project would not result in a significant adverse environmental impact. I guess what's in front of us today is simply creating lot lines for the townhouse component, and it doesn't really, in my mind, it doesn't really open up the opportunity to be able to, require the applicant to provide more landscaping, unless they choose to do so as a neighbor, right? So I guess that's what I have to offer, and I'll defer to the planning board members on how they further discussion.
I guess I would tend to agree with that assessment, Wes. I was struggling as we're going through this conversation to see what else we could do. Wes brought up, I think that's your house from
Right.
42. So you've got some awfully large trees there that.
So this is an old image, so this is a street view, but it's not current. So I had to take out 28 trees from my property when I moved in. So I had a conversation with Bill about that. And Bill and I walked the property, so I'm not here to cause problems and to throw a wrench into this project. I'm here to make sure that if I'm going to be a good neighbor, I want the Morel Builders to be good neighbors, and I think we're on the same page here, that we both want the landscaping at the property line. And I was wondering if there was an existing landscape plan that we could see.
Well,
And now that I learned about the hiking trail, I would also be interested in how that would impact the landscaping that's going to go on that property line.
Well, I think that could go hand in hand with the conversation about landscaping and, fitting a hiking trail. They like trees just as much as everybody else.
Good, we're all on the same page then.
I mean, you're welcome to have this. This is my copy of the site plan.
Okay.
It shows what I presume are new trees on the perimeter of it, and it's a matter of how it ultimately get placed, but, you're certainly welcome to have that. So I think that shows their intent. It doesn't show by,
Right.
specification, so to speak, of what's going in.
So a question for the board then, when a builder makes a landscaping plan, who holds the builder accountable to that landscaping plan after it's said and done, after it's completed?
That'd be the code enforcement
Okay,
office.
so the code enforcement afterwards?
Yep.
Okay.
So there's some business cards back there with planning department contact information if you don't already have that, and certainly welcome to see
Okay.
Lisa and
Yeah,
Thank you for your
before
time.
C of Os are issued.
Pardon me?
Before C of Os are issued, they compare it to the approved and signed site plans.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks for getting the postcard right this time.
Yeah, you're right.
anyone else? I knew you'd have something to say.
You did? Deborah Hogan, 580 Sour Farms Drive. And my comments actually are pretty close to Mike's. Have you guys been up and looked at the site at all?
Well, I haven't been since I walked it the first time, which is,
Right,
obviously there's
but-
a lot of earthwork going on and up there, so.
As background, obviously, you guys know I had a lot of concerns, and Jeff Morrell came out and walked the site with me. And as we went around, his comments were, these townhomes are going to be rentals, and we want to remove as little vegetation as possible because we are going to maintain those properties. And specifically, he went and I'd say, like, what about that tree? Because there were 100-year-old trees on that property. Oh, no, we don't want to touch that. We don't want to touch any more than we have to. So I encourage you guys to go up there and look because it has been leveled. There is not a tree left other than on the perimeters. But all of the things that Jeff said, I don't know if it's because they're for sale now, and I don't know what caused the change, but I am really upset, and I would like you guys to ask them to revisit the landscape plan. It needs a lot more landscaping than what was in the original plan because of what's happened up there.
Yeah, I'm looking at the color plan that I just gave my copy away of. It doesn't show new landscaping behind those townhomes near your
Right,
house.
and Jeff and I had an agreement, which came before the planning board, you heard it, it's in your minutes, where after the buildings are up, because it makes sense to do it after they're up, is to decide whether to do landscaping on the Morel side or landscaping on my property, and he committed to doing that. So, I have some okay feelings that will maybe get there, but I'm more concerned about things like those apartment buildings and those townhouses. I can tell you right now that I would not want to own those townhomes and have these people looking down. I mean, you can see in those pictures, there's nothing left. It has been leveled. All of the trees that were there are gone.
So are the ones that, it's like there's a line across towards the back, and I think that's where the cul-de-sac townhomes are. There's still trees there,
Right,
which
those,
seems to be the limit of the yards that they depicted in this. Not, you can't tell,
Right.
scale-wise, but.
right, but what I'm trying to say, Joe, was like around the cul-de-sac, on the other side, there were some big trees that he had committed to say, we're going to save those. It was part of the aesthetics that they were going to do. You're right, the trees to the left there of the townhomes, those actually are, some of those are on my property. And
Yeah, I'm looking at your property line here, the yellow, and then there's a stand of,
Right.
I don't have a scale here, I'm sure you could
No.
get it in Google Earth, but,
So anyhow, those trees are there, yes.
mhm.
That's wonderful. I'm glad
Yeah.
they didn't take all of them. All I'm saying is they really wiped everything out there, which was not when he and I walked that property around, he had it all marked. He walked me around the cul-de-sac. He showed me where the road was going to be, and we were looking at trees all around there. And it was supposed to be minimal disruption, especially the big trees. I mean, I get
Mhm.
that you have to take things out to put places in. So it's devastating and it's heartbreaking. When I was watching them tearing those 100-year trees down, just ripping them out with no regard for anything.
Well, the plan does show pretty much clearing and grading on this whole site.
Well,
And-
all I can tell you is, and I have an email from Jeff after this confirming, we're going to take out minimal trees, blah, blah, blah. We want to be good neighbors. I want them to be good neighbors. So at this point, I can't, they can't put the trees back
Right.
in. We all know that. They're
Yeah.
gone.
I would suggest if there was an understanding between the two of you, that you have that, revisit that conversation once they start putting the foundations in, I guess.
Yes, for my property, fine, but I'm now also an advocate for all
Mhm.
those people who are buying those townhomes.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, I don't know what those townhomes are going to sell for, but I bet they're not going to be cheap.
Well, and the other thing is, they will be buying townhomes knowing what the grading is now versus what it was.
Right, but they won't know what the landscaping's going to look like with the apartment buildings, because the apartment buildings are coming later.
Well, that's true, but
So if these guys and you guys don't want to beef up the landscaping project, which is what I'm asking, I mean, I'll be over there talking to all 26 of those people saying, okay, let's have a revolution here because it's not right.
Well, as Wes noted earlier, what we're acting on tonight is subdivision of lots. We've already approved the site plan and all of the pieces with it. It's not,
I don't feel like the application, the submission of this application doesn't give the planning board a second bite at the apple of the design.
I guess that's what I was not delicately trying to say, but
Okay, well, that's fine, but certainly Jeff Morrell, the Morrells, could bring you a revised plan after hearing my concerns for
They
landscaping,
could.
correct?
or I don't know, they'd have to want to amend their site plan. That's a whole nother process.
Well, I see tonight, it says /final. And last time we tried to bring up some of these issues and we were told, come to this meeting, there'll be a public hearing. Public hearing on lot lines?
We've already had the public hearing on the whole subdivision. This is a public hearing to change from, to establish lot lines for each of the townhomes.
Okay.
And we've done that with the golf course, every time they build a townhouse, they know exactly where it is, then they put the lot lines on, and then we have to approve that. It's kind of what we're doing here, so. Any other comments from the public? I guess I'll entertain I don't know, Scott, you want to address those questions that she brought up?
Yeah, obviously, my intent is to, first of all, move forward with the resolution because we want, grading complete, infrastructure complete, seating, stabilization, all of that too. So we're trying to keep that moving. I wouldn't want to change the landscape plan, as I said before. I'm not sure of the conversation because Jeff isn't here, but what I would be doing is the same type of thing as the townhouses, come together. I would certainly look at some additional screening that we could do, and we will reach out at that time when the structures are being built. So that would be our intent.
You offer a landscaping package when you sell these townhomes?
We do. It's typically, a front type package. But like I said, then we would do those things. But where you position the townhouse is the best to have that, and then put some, some trees or whatnot in the backdrop where we can, because you want to finalize the grade and whatnot. So
I could add to it, because this is Bill Areno with Morel Builders. I'm the sales and marketing end of it, so obviously we're just as concerned about Deb's view as we are our customers' view on the townhomes. And like we did over at Piper Meadows, we added quite a few additional trees, and as we're doing in Wolfsburger Park and Honey Falls right now, I just had 14 trees installed, all 9-foot tall. Some beautiful evergreens. So we'll look at the position there, and Jeff and I actually walked the entire site before we finished clearing to make sure that we did the best we could to maintain view shed on both sides.
And I think the biggest challenge is between the townhomes and building one.
Yep.
So,
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
So I empathize with all you're saying, and I appreciate, that follow-up. So
Sure.
if you want to keep the conversation going between you and Morels, that certainly is something that, would bear fruit. And if I'm somebody who wants to buy one of those, I would certainly have that conversation myself to say, what are you going to do behind the townhomes to screen between mine and the new building that's going to be built after my townhome is in? So.
And I can even further add to that, just to kind of put people's minds at ease, that the reason why it's better to wait is because of perspective. And it might be better to put the tree closer to one person because it can block more view, or far, closer to another person.
Okay. Well, thank you. Proof's kind of in the pudding. I'll make a request if someone wants to close the public hearing.
Move.
Joe moves.
Second.
Ernie seconds. All in favor? Aye. So, we do have a proposal, or a resolution rather, for the subdivision. For this application, 8SP 2023, whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact, and there are 12 of them. Now therefore be resolved that the application of High Point 200 LLC, that's High Point, sorry. It's late. My line is a high in there, it's just the wrong one. Okay. We'll try that again. Application 2 PS 2024 and 1 FS 2024, whereas the planning board made the following findings of fact. Good thing I didn't get to reading too much on those. There's 17 of them. Now therefore be resolved that the planning board hereby issues a negative declaration for the proposed subdivision, and be it further resolved that the preliminary and final subdivision applications of Morel Builders, Inc., major subdivision entitled Highline Park, PDD, subdivision, drawn by Marathon Engineering, dated April 9th, 2024, received by the Planning Board April 9th, 2024, last revised April 22nd, 2024, Planning Board application numbers 2 PS 2024 and 01 FS 2024 be approved with the following conditions. Numbers 1 and 2 are standard. Number 3, that comments in the letter dated May 1st, 2024 from the fire marshal be addressed. Number 4, the comments in a letter dated May 1st, 2024 from code enforcement officer be addressed. Number 5, that the comments in a letter dated April 17th, 2024 from the landscape consultant be addressed. Number 6, that the comments in a letter dated April 23rd, 2024 from the town of Farmington Water be addressed. Ongoing conditions, numbers 1 and 2 and are standard. Number 3, that at a request of the Planning and Building Department, a pre-construction meeting shall be held prior to the start of construction. And be it further resolved that the Planning Board Secretary distribute the Planning Board's approval letter. So with that resolution, do I hear motion for approval?
Move.
Ernie moves.
Second.
Al seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried 4-0. So, thank you all very much. Thank you to the public for comments and input. And thank you, Lisa, for giving me the right resolution to read.
There's a lot of them.
Uh-huh. 2 of them have the same word in it. It's High Point, too, for that
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
So, motion to adjourn?
Highline.
High Point.
Al moves.
Second.
Joe seconds. Have a great week, everyone.
Anybody want this?